Awesome. So, great. Happy to have you here, Fisher. Excited to have you here. You're the OG Aptos NFT project, and excited to have you here and hear your perspective. And yeah, kick this off and um, yeah, get your perspective on everything. So, for those of you that don't know you, would love to hear an intro and also curious how you got into the space.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've done the Aptomingos sales pitch a bunch of times, but I'm Fisher. I'm the founder of Aptomingos. If I had to condense it down into like a really fast, like little, introduction, I would say Aptomingos as a project is all about community, exclusivity, alpha, and education. Some of our core values are honesty and transparency between founders and investors. Something I think was a little bit skipped out on in the NFT space in general, right? Like I use this example a lot, but when we make a transaction, whether it's to pay for marketing or to pay an artist or whatever to convert to stables or something, we're always just going to tell everyone that it's happening. We're going to make it like public and very clear. It's all happening on chain anyway. So like I don't understand why people aren't doing this in the first place. Like if people want to go see it, they could go see it. Um, but a little bit about like how I got into the space. I used to play video games professionally, believe it or not. Once you're kind of done with that, like you kind of get done at an early age, you start retiring like in your mid 20s. Um, then you just have a bunch of money that just kind of sits there and does like nothing because you don't know what you're supposed to do now. And then you do the classic stuff. You invest in the index funds and all the like safe stocks. I would classify them as. But if you're a little bit more ambitious, a little bit more like you want a little bit more excitement, then you get into options. You might get into crypto. That's kind of how I got started with NFTs. Is like um, I wanted a little bit. I wanted a little bit more fun, a little bit more risk. So I looked into NFTs. I started on Solana. I love Solana. That's where I come from. I love the communities over there. I did a little bit of trading on ETH, but back in the day when I started on ETH, you had to pay like $130 to to activate your OpenSea account. So I was like, fuck this, man. Like, imagine if you're like imagine you're just a normal person who has like even $1,000 is a lot to throw away on NFTs, for example. But let's say you had $1,000 and I had to pay more than 10% of my entire capital just to activate like an account to trade. I was like, nah, fuck this, bro. It's way too much. It's better nowadays, of course. Um, but I kind of made Solana my home after that little after those shenanigans. So that's a little bit where I come from.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely agree with you on the values of these things needing to adhere to being transparent. And yeah, kind of curious to dig in a little bit deeper on, how that transfers into the Aptomingos project. And it's super interesting to hear, actually, to hear a professional video game player also would love to pull on that string. And yeah, definitely makes sense as you look at how to diversify and honestly, yeah, continue to make returns and have that be a sustainable way to live on with a portfolio. Cryptos definitely makes sense, and NFT is a huge part of it. So yeah, that's super cool to hear. Yeah, kind of curious to pull more on the string for the professional video game. What game did you play?
Yeah, I played Overwatch. I used to both play and coach. I coached for like 1.5 years, and I think I played for probably like around five, like 4.5 to 5 years or something like that. I got started when I was. I mean, I've played video games all my life. Like it's kind of been part of like my upbringing and all this. Like when I was like 2 years old, I played Nintendo 64 in my dad's
Wow.
basement, and as I grew up, I kind of like got into like online games. I played like the early versions of Counter Strike. I played Dota, League of Legends, like all these titles. And I really liked those specific titles in general, right? Like I liked shooters like Counter Strike, but I also enjoyed the MOBAs like Dota and League of Legends.
Nice.
And then Overwatch came out in like 2015, I think, or something like that. And it was like they kind of combined both of those genres, like both the shooter and a MOBA, into one. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is the game I want to fucking
Nice.
play. Um, so it just got pretty good, and then I started looking into like a more competitive environment. Started playing for a few teams. Got to travel around the world because of it, which I'm super fucking grateful for. Played World Cup 3 times in the game, representing my country, which was also fucking
Wow.
awesome. Um, but yeah, just like that was kind of how it started. It was an awesome experience. I'm so fucking grateful that I had the opportunity to do so. I think traveling around the world, living in different countries while playing video games is like every fucking boy's dream, kind
Yeah,
of.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
so it was definitely
I
awesome.
remember Counter-Strike. I was never as competitive. I would definitely play the zombie mods as opposed to competitive. But there's people that are incredibly good at that. Even like go on Call of Duty. There's people that are amazing. What is the what is like the training regimen for that look like? Like, what did your day to day look like when you were professionally playing?
Yeah, like it kind of depends because sometimes you like live close to like an office where you go to practice and it's a little bit more structured. Um, but most of the time, and if it's just online, you basically play like 13, 14, 15 hours a day. Um, and you practice like you seriously practice like within a team environment for like 4 to 8 hours, depending on like how strict your coach is and what you actually want to do and how casual you are, if you're getting paid, etc. If you're getting paid, it's closer to like 8 hours, like in a super high intensive like team environment, and then 4 to 6 hours outside of that, just like playing, the ranked mode, just playing ranked, like basically like working on yourself individually, watching VODs, getting smarter. Um, so the practice like training regimen can be a little bit tough. But like you're playing a game, man. Like it's supposed to be fun at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So like it never felt like a job to me, at least.
Yeah, that's crazy. Definitely sounds like an elite athlete of having to spend like most of the day just like training for this thing. I imagine like running drills and working with the other teammates. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Super interesting to hear that firsthand. I've never met anyone that has done that. What I guess what was that like? And is it something that you mentioned that people retire like in their mid 20s? Like is it just like super intense or kind of curious because it seems like like even Tony Hawk or like some other athletes going to like even on professional soccer going to like their 30s 40s. Kind of curious, yeah, to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's also like culture based within the games. So like for example, Counter Strike, it's pretty acceptable to be like late 20s and like maybe even early 30s. But in our game, in Overwatch specifically, you kind of you got old when you were like 25, basically. Like that's when people started thinking you were old. Which is like it was kind of fucked up because I think I hit my prime when I was like 23, 24, and I think I could have definitely played more, like if the culture was different and if I wasn't like looked down upon as like an old person at that time.
Wow, this sounds
But that's just
controversial.
like,
Like you're saying it's like
yeah,
ageism, like you kind of get pushed out.
it's like kind of you kind of get forced out. It's like it doesn't matter like how you perform or like at that point it's just like kind of they look at your age and then they look at some 18-year-old kid and they're like, oh, we can mold this 18-year-old kid into something, like this guy who's already 25, for
Wow.
example. Which like that's like I think it's somewhat fair to a degree. Like I think there's definitely value in like molding a younger person into something, but I also think there's like value in experience, right?
Yeah.
Like we've seen that with fucking in every sport ever. Like the people who've been in the game for 5, 10 plus years, they fucking know the business. They know
Yeah.
how it goes down. So it's like as long as they haven't lost their passion for the game, I wouldn't consider like age to be a factor.
I
Um,
would.
like as long as you're passionate, as long as you're still working
Yeah.
hard, like it doesn't fucking matter. But that's just kind of how it was in Overwatch, and you just kind of you had to check other avenues like coaching, for example, like I did.
I might even bet that the older players are probably better than like a like a teenager, like an 18-year old. Like you've had more time to think about strategies, and you probably develop more like higher level thinking of some of these games. So that's kind of interesting. Seems like a market opportunity. Put together a team of like older players to go against the kids. Anyway, yeah, maybe something we can pick up in the future if you're down to pick up the controller game again.
Yeah, I think I mean I'm still like involved, kind of like I'm still watching I'm still following the scene. I still have a few peers and former teammates that are still pursuing it. So I'm still following it. I'm just not like actively actually doing anything. Like I'm not playing anymore. I'm not coaching anymore. However, Overwatch actually announced that the World Cup's going to happen
Mm.
again. They cut it off when COVID hit. Um, but I think this year they're going to do it on the World Cup, and I think there's a great possibility that I should be on the team again because I've been on the team for like 3 years in a row when it was happening. So I think there's definitely some tenure and experience there that might, get me on the coaching spot or the general manager spot or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a huge, like a very cool opportunity. I guess bringing it back to NFTs and do you do you see or anticipate maybe some merge of what's possible? So like, maybe within the games itself, or it might be far away, but on the periphery, like if wanted to set up some form of team and potentially create NFTs or do something to coordinate a bunch of people out there to bring together, something around gaming. Do you see any intersections there?
Yeah, it's a super interesting like concept of like combining esports with NFTs somehow. We actually like me and my like co-founders of Aptomingos, we've actually discussed this because we all come from esports. We're three people that come from Overwatch. Um, and we thought it would be kind of interesting to like maybe start like a decentralized, esports organization or something like that, where like holders of your NFTs would basically make the decisions. They would hire the players. They would vote on, coaches to hire, things like these. Um, but like practically, I'm not sure how it will work. Um, Esports contracts are a little bit complicated. Um, Most of them are like 6 months to like 2 years, 3 years. But there's a lot of like legal mumbo jumbo in between that basically just means that like you could lose your job at any moment because like that's just how the fucking game like that's how it works. Like transfer windows are sometimes open at weird times. Um, and like the contractual and like legal stuff like in between something like this, I feel like it's a little bit complicated. But I do think it's interesting. I think some people have maybe tried to do it already. Like I know there's the term like guild thrown around between in like NFT community sometimes where they're building some sort of like high elite like gamer community for some of these like NFT games that you can make money off of. And that's definitely interesting, but in a more like Web 2 way, with like involving some of these like AAA games that already exist, like League of Legends, Counter Strike, Dota, Overwatch, for example. I feel like we're still a little bit far away, probably. But it's definitely interesting, and it's something that we have thought about before.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that intersection of like traditional Web 2 media, entertainment, and using these new rails to unlock new opportunities is super interesting. Like one that comes to mind and is Blau's project, which recently went live. And you have artists like Nas essentially like sharing revenue streams from streams on like Spotify and other places. So I hear you. The contractual part is definitely difficult, and that still needs to exist. You still need a good legal counsel or team that creates the product around that. But then the NFT component that allows just like a broader base of people to just interact with these, do things like voting, access exclusive content, interact with players, etc. All of that, just enables it without like a specific platform that everybody has to use, like owned by EA Sports or any of those. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely like an interesting edge. Hopefully, as Web 2 and Web 3 continue to merge into Web 5, I guess we'll see more of these use cases play out. So yeah, kind of interesting, and there's potentially some experiments we can run and see how it takes off on like even kind of like simpler games. You could imagine like a league for Floppy Birds, and then eventually that league evolves into something more competitive like Counter Strike or yeah Call of Duty or Dota or some of these other ones. um,
Yeah, I think because it's like unexplored territory in Web 3, it's like it's always good to just start like with a small experiment, like doing some stupid game, trying to like implement some of these things that
exactly.
like maybe the Web 2 media companies or yeah, Web 2 like gaming companies, studios that they sort of do. You could try to implement it in some way on like a smaller scale, see if it works, and then if it does, you can obviously upscale to whatever degree you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this brings together kind of interesting primitive, which is culture. So I want to ask you about this, kind of like how you see NFTs. But I think NFTs is a way to kind of coordinate a culture of people, and that culture has like a finite amount of spots. It's like the number of NFTs. So like for Bored Apes, there's 10,000 people that are part of this culture. Obviously, that expands out as more apes get minted and more people can start accessing that environment. But that's something that exists in like, for example, Disney or other IP properties. So yeah, kind of curious to hear your thoughts on what you think, what are NFTs, and kind of like how you think about it.
Yeah, like to me, like NFTs has always been like a fun and exciting way to like express like storytelling. Maybe like that's how I look at it for Aptomingos, and how I also like kind of look at it for Gen 2 that we have coming soon. It's like, how can we get people excited about being part of something? And I think you do that through, like, you obviously do that through community. I think we can all agree that like the most the highest like valued NFT projects out there really fucking value their community, right? Like it's the Giga Chads who are never going to sell for any fucking reason because they are so excited to be part of this and the journey that they're like, nah, I'm never going to sell this shit. I'm just going to keep buying more. And I think like that's the way you like sell the storytelling in a way. It's like you need to get people fucking excited about what you're trying to like what feelings you're trying to convey or like what you're trying to do. So that's like sort of how I look at it. I think tooling and like analytical tools and stuff, like I think these are important, but I think they only exist because like exist in their own little bubble in a way where like they aren't really that valuable outside of like Web3 or outside of like this NFT ecosystem, for example. But the communities and the brands, I think, have the potential to be something outside of the bubble in a way. Um, so that's kind of how I look at it. Um, Communities like the reason why people are part of this is because it's like exclusive and it's cool and people are building like a brand basically. Like you look at like DeGods or Bored Apes, like you mentioned, right? Like these are some of the communities that I look up to when it comes to like how they're conveying emotion and how they're like speaking to the communities, how they're treating the people who are actually holding their stuff. Um, so to me, it's always been about like conveying emotion and like storytelling in a way that makes people excited about being part of it. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you start to see Yuga Labs start to do that with some of the properties that they're putting out, like this Dookie Dash, and the characters that they're building out. So it's super interesting, and I do have high hopes that as a brand, Yuga Labs could potentially compete against some of the other established brands like Mickey Mouse or whatever brands exist out there for IP. And it's just new rails, but same concept. Like, but I guess the cool part is that it feels like you have ownership over this brand or intellectual property, and obviously it depends on how it's set up. So, for example, Yuga has like very permissive licensing for the Bored Apes, but you feel like you have ownership over this community or culture that's being driven, and you don't really get that from like when I go watch a Disney movie, I don't unless I own like Disney stock or something, you don't really feel like you're part of it or contributing much. But it definitely shifts a lot with this new primitive where you can actually own the thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the way I would compare it is like when a new like Disney movie comes out, for example, like let's say you're a big fan of I don't know whatever some Disney movie, you go watch it in a cinema. That's like I feel like that's the like sort of feeling of like you're kind of with the group of your people, like you're with like that community, you're with like the culture who likes the same stuff as you. But I feel like you get that every single day in an NFT community, where like in a Discord, if you're just talking to these people every single day, you have like ways of engaging with these people that they have the same interest, we're in the same like sort of mindset, community, culture, whatever. You get to engage with these people on social medias like Twitter or Discord. Um, because I think the feeling of watching like a brand new movie of something that I really like in the cinema with other people who are also excited to be there, like kind of gives me that feeling. um, but that's the feeling I get from like NFTs and like the way that social media works with NFTs and these communities. And I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah, it almost feels like when there's a new Harry Potter movie and everybody gets dressed up to go to the premiere, and everybody's Harry or Hermione. But as you're saying, this can happen almost like every day digitally on Discord, on Twitter, and it's super interesting. Yeah, I think the affinity is definitely there. I'm curious to look at some of the metrics on like stickiness and growth. Yuga Labs is definitely one to watch to go up against some established brands, so that'll be super interesting to see. Um, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like yeah, I think you guys definitely like I mean they're the top dogs of like how to cultivate a community and how to build a brand. Um, I mean they've done it so fucking well at this point that it's like it's probably almost impossible to catch up. But I think that is like how you should look at like if you are striving to do something like that, you should definitely take inspiration from what you guys done and definitely look at what they've done and be like, okay, yeah, this worked and for a bunch of good reasons. And if you can implement it into your own project or like in a way that makes sense to your community. You obviously can't just copy this shit because it won't work, but somehow implementing what they've done, look at like some of the strategies they used and implement that into whatever you're trying to build. I think it's definitely the way to go. I think you should take inspiration from all these like bigger brands that have done so well so far.
Nice. I guess building on that, what are some of the inspirations that you're taking? So you also mentioned DeGods, and honestly, you kind of remind me of Frank a little bit as like a little bit of like a cult icon or figure. But yeah, kind of curious to hear more about what you're taking away from some of these and how you're applying it.
Yeah, yeah, I love this thing. Like I hear it, like I've heard it a couple of times that like people say I'm the fucking Frank of Aptos and stuff, and it's like it warms my heart. It like fucking it makes me so happy and jolly inside. But I also like don't like the comparison for a couple of reasons. Just because like we don't have the same background. Like D Gods initially wasn't even a success. I don't know if like the people who are here might not remember or might not know, but back in like December 2021 or like January 2022, like Degots was fucking dead. Like there was nothing left. The paperhand bitch checks didn't work. Everyone was putting it to the ground. It didn't really work. And I think what like differentiates Frank from me or like from other founders is that he had that like moment of fucking despair where his project was gone to shit, and you either like you have two options at that point. Either you like start stepping the fuck up and you make a plan and you go like, okay, community, this is shit. We understand why it's shit. Here's how we're gonna fix it. These are the steps we're gonna take to do so. Or you can give up, right? And I think Frank obviously did the first thing. And the reason I don't like the comparison is because I haven't really had that moment yet. Like Aptomingos, so like Aptomingos was specifically designed so like it couldn't really fail because we did a free mint, we airdropped fucking gas to every single person who was whitelisted, all these things. It's a small community, so there's not a lot of like community management that like has to go into it. Of course, there is some, but it's not like I'm managing like a 5K or 10K collection. Um, but the reason I don't like the comparison is because I haven't had that moment, right? Like everything has gone pretty fucking well for Mingos. We haven't had any like crazy FUD. We've had some here and there, and like when the floor was going fucking crazy on day one and day two, and then it like stabilized around I don't know 40, 50 after something, a couple days after. Like there were obviously people who were like disappointed and be like, oh, what are you gonna do to get the fucking project back and all these things, and like at the time it was just like the floor really isn't my like it's not my like it's not really my responsibility. Like what I've set out to do with the project, what we've set out to do in the roadmap, those are the things I'm going to focus on. I don't really care like if you bought the top, I sympathize and I feel bad for you, bro, but you shouldn't buy into something without like reading into it or like understand what it's actually happening. um but it does warm my heart. I think it's one of the reasons why I like to come on spaces and stuff and like talk about what we're doing with Mingos, what we're going to do with Gen 2. um but for Mingos, we actually didn't take a lot of inspiration from something like DGods. We actually went like the sort of opposite route, right? Where I took a lot of inspiration from like someone like General Soul and the Soul Army. Um, with like building a super like exclusive community, we spent a lot of time building the whitelist. Basically, it was like a lot of manual labor. When we opened the Discord, it was like if you were just there to say, good morning, good night, check my art, all this like classic grinding shit that people do when they try to get whitelist, you would just get kicked from the server. But if you engaged genuinely, if you were interested in Aptos as an ecosystem, if you were interested in us as a team, or if you just thought like the branding of flamingos or something, like something stupid, like if you thought that was interesting and funny, you would get to stay inside the community and you would have a chance of getting whitelist. Um, but I think there's obviously value in both sides of the coin, right? Like there's value in being these exclusive communities that like are a little bit more serious, responsible and like educational and stuff like this. And that's exactly how I wanted Mingos to be. I think of it as like the loyal and structured and responsible side. But I also think there's great value in the sort of ride or die communities, right? Like the gods, like that's I think the number one ride or die community, at least on. I mean, so they're going to ETH, but they were on Solana. But I think if you wanna cultivate like a ride or die community, you should definitely look at the gods and what they've done. Um, and like I said, I think there's great value in both. And I think deep down inside, like I am a trader that like I like to be a little bit more responsible. I think a little bit more structured about how I spend my money. But there's also a fucking part of me that is still just like a degen that wants to just be part of something cool. Like and I don't care if it's like how much it costs or like whatever. I just want to be part of something. Um, and that's we take a lot of inspiration for Gen 2 for that. So where like we have, I think it's hard to convey both feelings in one project. Um, and that's why I think we want to keep Aptomingos what Aptomingos is, and then we're gonna try to do something a little bit more chaotic and a little bit more like savage with Gen 2. To try to like cover both like ends of the spectrum, you know, the loyal, the structured, but also the savage and the fucking chaotic side of like, I guess, people's personalities. I think that's a little bit interesting. That's how we're trying to structure it, at least.
Yeah, we all have that yin and yang. I know some people have the small chaos in the middle, and other people have the small you know calm in the middle of the chaos. And that's pretty great to hear. It's I hear you as like very humbling to be compared, but you're very self aware. You know that these are different people, and it's also good for you to carve out your own brand and association. So a lot of respect there. And I really also admire that you're taking an approach to the culture that's more responsible than some of these degen, I guess, cultural moments that people have leaned into. I think that's definitely part of the culture and should not be ignored. And something that we all probably have, again, as you mentioned, kind of like the chaos within the calm. But after somewhat, I guess, the implosion of FTX, I think there's definitely responsibility for people that are leaders in communities and projects to get out as much education and hopefully instill a culture that's a little bit more responsible. And hey, if people want to degen and kind of like guess gamble into things, that's okay too. There's room for that. And but just do your own research and do it relatively safely. Don't put all your life savings into it. And but yeah, I think that's really commendable the way you're thinking about it. And the comparisons. It's just hard not to make the comparisons just because of how big of a brand that is. But really looking forward for you to build out your own version of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm super excited about it as well. Like that's, I mentioned like this moment of, despair that like Frank probably had when it was dog shit and people were like they flooded DOS and didn't think it was, gonna go anywhere. Like I want that moment. Like I want that as a founder. Like I'm not gonna purposely like do something stupid or do something bad, but I still want like that moment in time where I'm like, it's like kind of sink or swim. It's like, fuck, they don't like what I've done. They don't like where we're going. Like, but and then hopefully I'll have like a fucking moment in time where I'm like, okay, this is like I'm gonna step the fuck up now. Like this didn't work. It didn't work for these reasons. Here's what we're gonna do to fix it, and here's how we're gonna go forward. Like I think that moment is important, but it's also like I don't want to purposely, try to, make it happen like out of force. It just kind of have to come naturally. But I do kind of want that moment. I think it'll be great for me.
Yeah, just don't manufacture the crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis. So I don't have a DGODS, I don't have a Ute, so but I do like to admire history and read into it. Do you think this was correlated? His moment was correlated with the 33.3% tax, like the I think they called it like paper hand bitch tax.
Yeah, paper hand bitch tax. Yeah, I mean, I I think it was obvious from the beginning that it wouldn't work, but I mean, like Frank is pretty humble now, but he wasn't that humble when like when this was happening. Like when they released the paper hand bitch tax and it didn't work, he was like, nah, trust me guys, it's gonna work. But I think it was pretty obvious that it wasn't gonna work just because like there's no way, right? Like it's like an inflationary way to like keep the floor up or something. Like it's like you can't do that in an inorganic way, I don't think. So like um I think that's definitely like how that moment like correlated. It was like the paper had bitch tag didn't work, so everyone started flooding. No one bought DGOTs anymore. Everyone said it was shit. But the community was so passionate about the project still that they cared, right? I think the FUD was I mean, I wasn't exactly there, so I can't tell if the stuff was like really toxic or not. But when you have a community that still cares, I think that's super important. Like when things are going bad and they still care and they still, show their emotions, they're still vocal about like what they think, what they thought was bad, giving suggestions to how you could fix it, for example. I think that's already when you have something special. Because most people, like most communities, would just be like, "Oh, this is shit. Okay, I'm just gonna get out. I don't even care anymore. I'm just gonna sell at a loss and get out, go next." But when you have a community that's still passionate about the stuff, even when it's going bad, I think you have something special, and I think it definitely has potential to grow into something more.
Yeah, and that's a really good observation and something definitely to learn and take away from. Like he, even if it did or didn't work mechanically, it seemed like there was a lot of feedback from the community, and he started seeing it. And for him, to somewhat be arrogant, I guess we've seen that, that not play out too well for some other folks in crypto, like Luna, for example. So yeah, kind of interesting. Yeah, very interesting observation. For those in the audience that don't know, do you want to explain like what this was? I also posted a link to it in the comments.
The payment base
Yeah,
checks.
yeah. I
Yeah, it
also
was
am not
basically
super
like
familiar with it, so I would love to hear it from you.
it's like I don't actually know like the full like extent of it, but basically think of it this way: if the floor is at a certain price, like let's say the floor is 3 SOL, if you list underneath that floor, you would have to pay 33.3% in royalties for doing so. So it was a way to punish undercutters. Like that's how you should think about it. It was like
Oh wow, interesting.
if people want to leave the project, they're gonna have to pay more to the royalty wallet, like in some way like that, um, which like doesn't sound very healthy, but it also like kind of curated that community that like lives on today. I think there's some historic value in that experiment that didn't work, um, but I think the emotion lives on of like, fuck you, bro, don't sell under the floor, dumbass. Like that type of vibe. Because I think that's definitely what DeGods is at this point in time. So even though it didn't work, the community sort of cultivated that like emotion like sort of organically anyway.
Yeah, this it seems like almost like it was a meme in a way, where it was like this failed experiment that just, you know, it kind of became part of the culture afterwards. Because I do remember people, were putting like the 33.3% in their handle, and still talking about it. So yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, that is also like, yeah, definitely props to him for staring down something potentially catastrophic or existential for his project, and just owning it, and making a part of the culture, and a meme. And also, yeah, props for experimenting, honestly, like very risky. But there should be room for stuff like this, I think, so that we can continue to push the envelope and see what works. um, for I guess to that extent, you were mentioning that Gen 2 is going to have a little bit of a wilder side component. Yeah, we'd love to hear more about that, if you can share.
Yeah, so we're purposely sort of keeping it like somewhat ambiguous still, where the art is still somewhat of a secret. We've teased a few things here and there. Um, but like the lore that we have prepared for some of this, we hired an animation studio to do something for us when it comes to marketing. But basically, the emotion that we're trying to convey is like someone who's like maybe like feeling a little bit stuck or a little bit like lost in like the age range is like 20 to 35, 40, something like that. Where like the fucking classic boring 9 to 5, it's just boring, man. Like, and you should be part of something that's a little bit more exciting. Not to say that you shouldn't work a 9 to 5 and all these things, but like I think everyone who's in Web3 for whatever reason is probably here because they don't really resonate with the classic like 9 to 5 sort of working schedule. They want to think a little bit outside the box. They want to be part of something that's a little bit more exciting. They think the technology of blockchain is interesting and can be something in 5 to 10 years, something like that. Um, and that's the sort of like little like feeling that we're trying to convey with this. It will be a little bit more chaotic. I think the marketing strategy we have planned for it will definitely convey that as well. That's one of my hopes. Um, you know, I think one of the big issues with Aptos right now is that like no new users are coming in. Um, like at least in the NFT ecosystem, right? Like maybe people are trading apps and that's fine, but to sort of elevate the NFT communities, I think we just need more genuine and serious builders over here that want to create cool stuff. I think that's how you organically like get more people excited about chain, at least in like the NFT ecosystem, perspective. It's like just build cool stuff that people want to be a part of. And that's what we're trying to do with Gen 2. It's like, no matter where you come from, whether you are, partial to Sol or ETH or, I don't care, AVAX, NEAR, whatever, you name it, that you look at our stuff, you look at, the marketing we're going to do, you look at the project, you look at the art, and you go, holy fuck, I want to be part of this. And I don't care that it's on Aptos or whatever. They don't care, like, what the, what the steps are to get a wallet and all these things. They're going to do it because it looks cool. And that's basically like the over-compassing like sort of thing we're trying to do with Gen 2. We also want to do some cool stuff with the minting experience, and we definitely want to do some interesting stuff with like the actual collection. Like people fucking call this utility and stuff, but we can discuss that a little bit later down the road. Um, but I think staking is definitely a interesting mechanic to where you sort of reward long-term holders. I think the classic staking is kind of boring, so we're gonna put a spin on it that's a little bit more exciting and a little bit like innovative. Um, I don't know if it's gonna work. That's like always the fun part of like doing something that's a little bit new, and it's like the challenges that sort of come with doing something new can be kind of fun. So we'll sort of see how it works. But basically, I don't like the token model that much. Um, I think time-based staking is definitely the way to go. We like video games, so I'll drop a little bit of alpha. I've said this kind of before, but like we come from video games. One thing I think video games do really well is reward players for doing like minor tasks while still learning the game. So think of like a battle pass, for example, right? Like battle pass in any game, it could be you buy something for like $10 to $20 and you get rewarded for completing missions, doing tasks, learning the game, and you get rewarded in skins, kind of, right? For whatever game you're playing, or you get rewarded in some sort of XP or whatever. I think games do this really well. I think there's definitely something there in terms of like NFT collections and how you could implement that with staking. It's still a work in progress. We have a working model that we're talking to Aptos Labs about this and whether or not Move can do something like this. And if it can, we'll love to do something that makes a little bit more sense than just like the classic, make a token and just keep adding utilities to this token, because I think it's a little bit outdated at this point. Um, Not to say that it can't work, but like think of successful tokens like in your head about like from other NFT projects. Like there's like Dust from DeGods, like we said. There's Forge from Blocksmith. You could argue Ape is a utility coin, but it's also from like the biggest NFT project ever in brand. So it doesn't really matter. Like it would have value regardless. But like there really aren't that many that made it. Like there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tokens to native like NFT projects that are just worthless, because it's really hard to keep adding value and utility to this one token. And tokenomics are also they're complicated, man. It's really complicated to make like a token that makes sense like long term. So like you could argue that like something like Wood from Mindfolk did super well in the short term, and Boku from Boryoku or Dragons did well short term. But where are those things now, right? So we're trying to stay away from the token sort of aspect of staking, and just focusing on something that makes a little bit more sense, that would still reward people in the long term, but still have them somewhat like decide their own level of involvement, which I think is super interesting. So can't speak too much about it because it's still like an early thought process and development and stuff, but um, that's a little bit on how my look on staking at least.
Awesome. Yeah, would definitely love to touch base on that and discuss a little bit more. Maybe I can be a good soundboard or brainstorm. Definitely agree with you there on some of these mechanisms and how they could potentially be evolved. Like I don't, for something like an NFT, which itself is a primitive that already carries value, I don't see why that in itself can also, be a vehicle as opposed to something separate like a token. Like, yeah, like kind of interesting to see how potentially NFTs themselves can accrue value or accrue new, um, yeah, new metadata, I guess, for lack of a abstract word. But yeah, and another thing that we've been thinking about a lot about, and it's definitely standard in DeFi, but I think could be applicable to NFTs is, and yeah, I think you touched on it, is the concept of like time-based staking and what sort of rewards are there for longer stakers. So obviously, people are familiar with Curve and their implementation of voting escrow, but I think there's a lot there that can be experimented on. Like for example, the voting weight and the time decay on that. Instead of it being linear, potentially could be more dynamic track oracles, internal oracles that are fed information from the blockchain. And I think you can do a lot of interesting stuff there. And really, the primitive doesn't have to be a token; could also be an NFT. So, yeah, would love to kind of like share some ideas, and because I think there's a lot that can be done there on the edges with smart contracts that can leave the core primitives, that's the NFT, separate. But yeah, definitely start to push the boundaries on how this stuff can be built, and some of the learnings that we've taken from DeFi, and potentially apply them to NFTs as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'd be down to discuss this for sure. I'm also like, I mean, you guys have legit developers. Like we've said this before. Like we don't develop anything. We're not coders. We don't have any experience doing this stuff. We just kind of have the ideas of it. So I love having like people like you guys sort of in my corner when I want to discuss what's possible, like in terms of for something like staking, for example. So very very happy to discuss some of these ideas. Maybe behind closed doors though. Maybe not on spaces like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we're here for growing the community, and honestly, we love NFTs. I think it's a great way for people to conceptualize crypto in a way that they can really truly understand it. And the next step is putting that to use with the financial primitives that is crypto and DeFi. So as an example, we recently built farms with NFTs integrated, and this is fully permissionless. So I know you mentioned you're not thinking or want to go a different direction from a token, but a lot of NFT projects definitely have tokens, and one way that they could incentivize easily liquidity pools is by having people lock them up for a period of time, and then using the NFT as itself as a access token to getting boosted rewards. So that's a primitive that we built. We want to continue evolving it, potentially with something like what you're thinking of, and make these tools open for creators, so they don't have to be super super technical or have a huge development team to be able to make use of these primitives. So that's definitely our goal as well, and seeing the adoption definitely benefits the whole ecosystem and community. So we're happy to build stuff out like this, and it really does. It really is useful to build with you as well, so we understand what you're thinking, what are some of your requirements, and then how can we build stuff that's open, permissionless, and useful for you and your communities.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Let's definitely discuss that afterwards. We'd love to see how we could collaborate there. Um, so I know we have 15, 20 minutes. One thing that I'd love to dive into and get people's views is on more abstract, non-crypto stuff. So um, curious to hear your thoughts on two things. So one, aliens, are they here? What the heck are we seeing in the skies? Um, and two, ancient civilizations, and are they connected?
I think that the universe is so fucking big that thinking that aliens do not exist is ignorant. I think they definitely exist for sure,
Yeah,
100%,
100% agree there.
100%, bro. What was the what was the second? I forgot about the
Oh,
second one already.
ancient civilizations. So there's this conception that Mesopotamia and Egypt, were the first things that existed. However, not too long ago, we started discovering uh, even older civilizations like Göbekli Tepe, and in Turkey, which is about 12, I believe, about 12,000 years before the pyramids, and it was like a pretty complex structure that could fit like thousands of people on the ground. Um, so yeah, I guess the theory there is that potentially there's some ancient civilizations that we've somewhat suppressed or haven't really talked about that potentially could be out there.
Ah, okay, I see. Like the classic like conspiracy theory of like how the pyramids were built and stuff
Yeah,
like this. Like,
Atlantis.
were
Yeah,
there
exactly.
were there some sort of like ancient civilization that had crazy technology that we don't know about? Yeah, I think it's probably possible. Yeah, why not? I think the probability of Earth being here and us being alive and all this shit is like 0.0000000 whatever 1% or something. So why not? I think probably like anything is possible in in this universe.
Yeah, and I think they're both connected because they're both just the matter of not having enough information. Like I feel like, we can definitely say that there was a civilization prior to Mesopotamia and Egypt that was like super advanced. But we also can definitely say it's not. But because we can't prove it, it's safer to say that it doesn't exist. Otherwise, we sound crazy. And somewhat similarly with aliens, right? Like a lot of people can say like, oh, there's no specific evidence of it. Until you do, you can't really, prove it. But it seems almost like when you think about it, almost especially for aliens, like yeah, like why wouldn't there be? We can't be that unique. This universe is so vast, and the more that we discover, the more we learn that how little we do know.
Yeah, exactly. I love space like as a sort of side hobby. Like, I think black holes are some of the most interesting thing ever. So like topics like these are always sort of fun to discuss, just like on a casual level. But yeah, I think the universe is so fucking big, man. How the fuck are we like yeah, there's no way.
Exactly.
There must be aliens, bro.
Yeah, and even like dark holes, right? Like we still don't even fully get what the heck happens. There's like it looks like as you reach the event horizon, information kind of like disappears, and if it does, like where does it go? And obviously, we're like now looking more at it, and it could be, things that we're still discovering now. So it's super interesting, yeah, that there's like these massive, massive things out there that we just like barely, barely understand. And it's just because we're this like tiny speck on a flying rock. Um, Even like dark matter and dark energy, as I understand it, it's also just stuff that we still can't, put a name on it other than dark because we just don't understand it. Um, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, these topics are definitely like sort of interesting. And I spent, when I do have some free time, I like to watch, fucking silly YouTube videos that like, explain some of these phenomenon and all these things. Um, so yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. This space already became like it's a Nobel Prize, fucking attendee space all of a sudden. Now we're just discussing the phenomenon of the universe. How fucking crazy is that? What a time to be alive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's not unrelated. Like, if we can figure out how to make, NFTs and these digital valuable things we can send over the internet, if we can figure out how to put, iPhones in our brains, I think we can figure out how to reach another planet. And if we're doing it now, there's likely someone else that's already did it. So
Oh yeah, I would love to like cultivate Mars, bro. I would love to fucking start a society over there. I think that's sick. I think that's gonna be sick as
would
fuck.
you
I can't wait to
would you
be.
go if you had the opportunity?
Yes,
100%.
100%.
Even if like it's like 20% chance you might die.
Yes. Like, okay, see, I think of it this way: if I could, if someone could, if we could teleport to the nearest like black hole or something, and some scientist said that they would strap a GoPro to my head and throw me in, I think I would say yes, bro.
That's hilarious.
For humanity, for science, I think it would like I'll probably die, right? Like there's a very fucking good chance I'll die, but I think that's too exciting and too like fucking out there that I would yeah I'll probably do that. Strap a GoPro to my head, fucking throw me in. Let's see what
We just
happens.
need to stream it live. We just need to get the footage.
Exactly. Just get on a NASA stream on Twitch or fucking YouTube or something.
Put it on
First human thrown into a black hole. Let's go.
put it on IPFS. Make an NFT of it. It'll be the ultimate. Artist committed suicide. Art becomes super valuable. Um, Phenomenon, I guess. But please stay around. Don't throw yourself into the black hole. um,
Yeah, I know. It's probably still a bit far in the future. Maybe like, probably like 100, 200 years, maybe.
yeah,
Probably even
but
further.
Mars isn't. I feel like right now there's probably like kids, maybe like teenagers or even 18-year-olds that are training to go to Mars, right? Like 2030. That's not too far away.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't think I would be able to do it. Like even if the chances of dying weren't that high, but you just couldn't come back. They're like, okay, you're gonna have to go start a colony there, but you won't be able to come back. Um, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, but it's like you would never. It's like the most unique opportunity ever. It's like you're restarting society on a fucking different planet with different gravity and different fucking fit. Like it's cool, man.
I
Doesn't that sound cool
I
as
mean,
fuck?
I agree with you. There's I believe someone should do it, and people like you that want to go do it would be awesome, and we'll just strap a GoPro and see what happens. It's like Lewis and Clark. There's Lewis and Clark, and then there's like, the people that were like, all right, I'll wait for the train to get set up, and then I'll take it there on vacation or something. But yeah, we definitely need Lewis and Clark to go there. So I'll be watching the GoPro live stream.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Awesome, man. So this was a awesome conversation. Would love to have you on here again, comment on more stuff on NFTs. Any parting thoughts to the audience? Anything you want to share?
Um, no, I think this is great. We're trying to do some more cool stuff with the auctions that we've got going on right now. That's maybe the one plug I didn't make
Cool.
yet. But basically, like we have these like one of one Aptomingos that we didn't put in the collection purposely that we wanted to auction off a little bit later. So we've auctioned off I think 4 at this point. Um, the 5th one is going right now. It's a zombie. There's like a couple more hours left. The fucking top offer is 420 apt. Fucking believe it or not, that's pretty
Yeah, that's
crazy.
crazy.
But for the next one, for the Caesar, which is one of the I think one of the more desired ones, we are hosting a Fall Guys tournament that we're going to stream on Topaz. They have the little Topaz TV thing in the corner. Um, I thought it would just be like a little fun thing to do for all the communities. 20% of the proceeds would go to the top 3 winning communities, so we have a point system in place for how this is going to work. But basically, trying to make these auctions fun is, I think, a big part of um, like how we're supposed to host them in a way. Like if we just hosted them and just let it sort of ride, it would be kind of boring. But doing small events for them, like we're doing with this one where we host a tournament, or like the other one where we had like my patent pending technology called Abusafish, where people would bid and I would do stupid shit on camera. I think doing stuff like these to make the auctions exciting, even if you can't bid, I think is definitely the way to go. So we do have that on Sunday, which I think will be fun. It'll be probably a little bit chaotic because we will have to like host something with 40 plus people, but we'll see how it goes. It's supposed to be fun, so I'm not taking it too seriously. It's just a silly game we'll play, and then whoever wins will get a bit of the proceeds from the auction. So I think that'll be fun.
Awesome. This kind of came full circle on our conversation on bridging NFTs and kind of like Web2 gaming, if I'm understanding. Uh,
Yeah, kind of.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is definitely what we need to do. Just get people more engaged and doing shared activities on the internet. So I'm excited to see how it goes. Everyone, check it out. The link I think you shared in the comments. So please go check it out. And yeah, man, excited to see more progress. And yeah, let's have you back on, after the mint and hear how it goes.
Yeah, definitely sounds perfect.
Cool, great, thank you.